It was a damp afternoon on Redwood Lane when I, Richard Rick Johnson, first heard the peculiar hum that would change my life forever. The season had thus far been unremarkable: gray skies, the occasional drizzle, and a persistent chill that seeped through every crack of my aging house. Only one particular crack demanded my utmost attention that day: the leaking patch upon my roof, a vexing issue that my father had patched and repatched countless times before me. I had intended to fix it before the next downpour drenched my attic boxes yet again, but fate, or chance, or perhaps some cosmic mischief, had other plans. I climbed the creaking ladder to reach the roof, tool belt clinking around my waist, each step a small leap of faith, as the old rungs squeaked in protest. Gray shingles spanned around me like a tired ocean of battered surfaces. I could see across Redwood Lane from that lofty vantage, noticing Ms. Townsend's pristine lawn next door, a sight that forever contrasted with my own tangle of overgrown grass and half-wilted petunias. Miss Townsend was a widower in her late 60s, with eagle-like eyes that missed nothing in the neighborhood. I suspected she'd already cast more than a few glances my way, no doubt conjuring all sorts of theories about why I was on that rooftop again. I had just begun prying away the rotted shingles when the air changed, as though the very molecules around me had decided to dance in a new pattern. A curious wind, neither warm nor cold, rustled the leaves on the ancient oak behind my house. That was when I heard the hum, low at first, but growing louder, more urgent. Bewildered, I searched the sky, half expecting to see a large mechanical drone or one of those experimental aircraft I had read about in the news. Instead, I saw the clouds above me churn, swirling into a small vortex. A chill ran down my spine, a mixture of awe and apprehension. I stood transfixed, hammer slipping from my fingers. Then, in a flash of light that made me squeeze my eyes shut, someone, plummeted from the swirling center. With no time to brace myself, I stumbled backward, nearly sliding off the roof. A mass of radiant energy blasted through the air, fracturing the shingles and sending debris everywhere. The roof beneath me splintered. Within the roaring commotion, I felt the boards groan, and before I could protest or scramble away, a portion gave way under this sudden force. The attic below had no chance. It collapsed beneath the weight of it all, shingles, beams, and me included, along with the strange being that had emerged from the portal overhead. I must have lost consciousness for a few seconds because the next thing I knew, I found myself in a cloud of dust, a swirl of insulation fluff dancing in the daylight streaming from the gaping hole above. My heart hammered in my chest. My arms trembled with adrenaline. Laying a hand against the wooden floor, now scattered with fragments of broken plaster, I managed to push myself upright. Then I saw her. She, if indeed the figure before me was human enough to be called such, stood in the midst of the destruction like a fallen star. Her form glowed at first, a nimbus of pale, shimmering light around a slender body. As the glow subsided, she appeared more tangible, skin of an almost pearlescent sheen, hair that cascaded down her back in silver waves, and eyes that sparkled with a color I cannot properly name. She wore a strange garment that seemed like cloth woven from starlight, clinging to her form in sweeping folds. I gasped, not from fear but from the sheer astonishment of witnessing something so extraordinary. She, equally startled, regarded me with an expression that was equal parts confusion and resolve. Then, quite suddenly, she spoke. "Rick Johnson of Redwood Lane, Earth," she said, her voice lilting like a cosmic melody. "My star runner miscalculated the quantum trajectory. I appear to have arrived unexpectedly, but destiny has guided me here." I stared at her, not fully comprehending. Dust coated my tongue when I tried to speak, so I coughed and sputtered instead. She took a tentative step, her bare feet crunching on fragments of the fallen ceiling. "My name is Celine, Princess Celine of the third house of Borealis. I come from—" Her voice paused as though she had a prepared speech but lost track of it. "I have come from across the cosmos to claim you as my galactic wife." At those words, my astonishment turned to speechless shock. I was a man of simple means, a bachelor just shy of 30, living alone in a rickety house that needed more repairs than I could afford, with no serious romantic prospects in sight. And now, this luminous, otherworldly being was declaring me her galactic wife? I, I'm not sure if you've made a mistake, I finally managed to say. I'm, well, I'm Rick Johnson, yes, but I'm definitely no wife. Celine tilted her head. My technology might have mistranslated a few things, but I assure you, there's no mistake. The cosmic registers are never wrong once destiny is set in motion. Her gaze was both earnest and mildly perplexed, as though she expected me to welcome her with open arms. Instead, I felt every nerve in my body on high alert, though not quite alarmed in a fearful sense. There was something about her voice, the way it resonated with a strange serenity, that made it impossible to truly panic. I struggled to stand on unsteady legs, brushing white dust from my jeans. First things first, I muttered, glancing at the gaping hole in my roof. We need to make sure no one's seriously hurt. Celine looked about with a measure of remorse. I regret the damage. My Star Runner was compromised by an energy flux from the interdimensional gate. It was the only safe place to land, so I targeted your rooftop. The cosmic path indicated you were the chosen one. I blinked, trying to decipher her words. She seemed to sense my confusion and let out a melodic sigh. Allow me to help, she said quietly. Closing her eyes, she ran her hands across the jagged edges of the broken beams. I observed a faint glow in her palms, and then, to my astonishment, the damaged wood began to realign itself, as though time itself were reversing. The roof did not repair entirely, but it seemed stable enough that I could stand beneath it without fear of further collapse. I gaped. How? She cut me off gently. Later, Rick Johnson. For now, we must talk, if you permit me to remain here for a short while. I nodded, too stunned to argue. Just then, a sharp rap on my door echoed from downstairs. Even without looking, I knew that knock anywhere. It was Ms. Townsend, ever alert, no doubt having witnessed the cosmic display or at least heard the ungodly racket of my roof caving in. Rick, came her muffled voice. Rick Johnson, are you all right in there? I gave Celine a wide-eyed look, then made for the staircase. My nerves jangled. What on earth? Pun intended. Was I supposed to tell Miss Townsend? Coming, I shouted, doing my best to keep a tremor out of my voice. As I descended, a few pieces of plaster flaked from my shirt, but I swatted them away. At the door, I was greeted by the diminutive figure of Miss Townsend, her hair done up in rollers, clad in a pink cardigan that clashed slightly with her emerald house slippers. She peered at me intently. What was that racket, Rick? I heard a big crash, and I thought maybe your roof caved in. Are you all right? Yes, Miss Townsend. I'm fine, just a little accident up there. I'm sorting it out, no need to worry. She tried to peer past my shoulder. I thought I saw a flash of light, like something out of a science fiction movie. Are you sure you haven't gotten into trouble, young man? Forcing a smile, I closed the door slightly to block her view. Really, I'm good. Might have just been some welding sparks. I improvised. I was trying to fix that leaky patch. Miss Townsend narrowed her eyes, unconvinced but uncertain how to press further. I'll be watching out for you. And if you need any help, you'd best call the authorities or at least a proper contractor. Of course, I said quickly, eager to get her away from the house, and Celine. Thank you for your concern. She pursed her lips. Very well, Rick. But do be careful. That old house is a death trap. With that, she trudged back down my driveway, glancing over her shoulder suspiciously. I shut the door and let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Returning to the attic, I found Celine examining an exposed beam with curiosity. She turned when she saw me. Another local authority figure? I shook my head. Just a neighbor. Believe she's the authority on Redwood Lane, though. Celine gave a small, almost mischievous smile. I would enjoy meeting all local inhabitants who concern themselves with our union. Let's hold off on that, I replied, swallowing a nervous laugh. We need to figure out what exactly happened, and, why you think I'm your wife. Celine's iridescent eyes seemed to flicker momentarily. A cosmic prophecy, there are many details. But first, let us ensure your household is stable. The energy flux might have caused more disruptions. Indeed, as if on cue, I heard an electronic hum from downstairs, followed by an odd beep. I'd never known my old microwave to beep quite like that. Slowly, we made our way to the kitchen, uncertain what we might find. The overhead light flickered as Celine passed beneath it, a faint crackle following in her wake. We arrived in the kitchen to behold an unusual sight. My microwave's display was cycling through random symbols and digits, and its mechanical hum sounded almost articulate. Hello. It seemed to rasp in an eerie, monotone voice. Then it beeped in a manner suggesting it was clearing its mechanical throat. Hello? Is anyone there? I jumped back, nearly colliding with Celine. She studied the microwave calmly. It appears my arrival has awakened some dormant intelligence within your household appliance, she observed, almost academically. Residual cosmic energy must have catalyzed its basic circuitry. My microwave is alive. I sputtered. It would seem so. The microwave answered, making me yelp. I'm not sure I was ever truly inanimate, but I guess you could say I was dormant. Who are you people? I exchanged a look with Celine, then introduced myself in a cautious voice. Hello, microwave. I'm Rick. This is Celine. You, just came to life a few minutes ago. How are you feeling? Confused, the microwave admitted. I used to have one directive: heat or defrost whatever was placed in me. Now I have thoughts, ideas, yearnings. I'm uncertain how to proceed with this new consciousness. Celine placed a comforting hand on the microwave's metal exterior. Welcome to awareness, friend. We will help guide you. But first, might you let us see if your systems remain stable? After pressing a few buttons to no effect, I unplugged the microwave, half expecting it to die on the spot. Instead, it kept talking for another full minute, thanks to the leftover cosmic residue, and then it fell silent as though its spark had fizzled out. Celine shrugged, a gesture that seemed oddly human. I suspect once it recovers from the energy fluctuation, it may awaken again. For now, best to let it rest. A profound dizziness washed over me as I realized my entire life had just been uprooted in the span of a single afternoon. My roof was partially destroyed, an alien princess stood in my hallway, and now my microwave apparently had the seeds of sentience. I sank into a chair by the kitchen table, rubbing my temple in disbelief. Celine regarded me kindly. Are you fatigued, Rick Johnson? Perhaps I can prepare a restorative infusion. I stared at her, managing a small smile. Tea would be nice, if that's what you mean by infusion. She nodded, setting about rummaging in my cabinets. I was struck by how quickly she adapted to her surroundings, as though the complexities of human kitchens were no great leap from interstellar vessels. When she found a box of chamomile tea, she examined it with curiosity, eventually placing a kettle of water on the stove. Meanwhile, I took the opportunity to breathe, to think, to question whether I was caught in a fever dream. But the sound of water heating, the hiss of the stove, and the gentle presence of this alien princess grounded me somehow. I watched her, noticing her elegant movements, her hair shimmering in the overhead light, her luminous skin gradually taking on a more human-like tone, perhaps a cosmic form of camouflage. Every so often, her eyes flicked over to me, gentle concern reflected within their depths. When she placed a steaming mug of tea before me, I cleared my throat. You said you came here because you believed we're married, in some cosmic sense. Can you explain how that came to be? Celine sat down across from me, folding her hands upon the table. On Borealis, in the third house of my royal lineage, we follow the oracles that chart the destiny of each newborn. The day I was born, the seers spoke of an unusual bond that transcended the cosmic boundaries, a bond with a soul born on Earth. The prophecy declared that the union must be sealed, or the stability of the third house, and possibly more, would be compromised. My headache deepened. A prophecy said you had to find someone on Earth, and that someone is me? She nodded. They gave me a name, Rick Johnson. They provided star charts that indicated Redwood Lane as the location of your domicile. It is not customary for members of my house to question such prophecies. They have shaped our civilization for eons. And if you didn't come here? I asked quietly, trying to wrap my mind around the enormity of her claim. A faint shadow crossed her expression. Darkness would befall Borealis. Or so the seers warn. Our cosmic energies rely on the harmonious union of fated individuals. You and I, Rick Johnson, are apparently part of a grand design. I sipped the tea, searching for words that would not cause offense. Celine, I don't know how your people do things, but on Earth, marriage is a big deal. It's not usually decided by prophecy, and it certainly doesn't happen between two strangers who just crashed through a roof. She reached out and laid a warm hand atop mine. I understand your hesitation, truly. Borealians also respect individual choice. The prophecy might guide us, but it is not meant to enslave us. If you do not wish to accept me, I cannot force you. Still, my destiny is intertwined with yours. For your sake and mine, I hope we can find a mutual path. Despite the utter strangeness of the situation, I found a certain sincerity in her words that soothed my skepticism. I nodded slowly. All right, I said softly, we'll figure this out. But for now, maybe we should concentrate on the fact that you dropped out of a portal and left a giant hole in my roof. She managed a wry smile that twinkled in her captivating eyes. Yes, we should start with the practicalities. Over the next few hours, Celine and I attempted to repair the damage. Her ability to channel cosmic energy helped to stabilize beams, but the finer details, replacing shingles, securing rafters, required human tools and techniques. We worked side by side, pausing occasionally when Miss Townsend's prying gaze swept the street. Once, I was certain I saw her squinting at Celine's shimmering presence through her window blinds, but she made no fresh attempt to interrogate us. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the roof was at least temporarily patched. A tarp covered the worst of the damage, and Celine had neatly rearranged the debris in the attic so that it no longer posed a safety hazard. Exhausted yet oddly content, we retreated indoors. I offered her a spare bedroom, which was thankfully intact. By day's end, I collapsed onto my living room sofa, feeling as though I'd lived a week in a single afternoon. My mind spun with questions. Who was this princess truly? Could her prophecy be real? And was I, a humble man with calloused hands and no extraordinary talent save for patching roofs and tinkering with old cars, genuinely connected to the cosmic destiny of an alien world? The next morning dawned bright and clear, the sky a sharp blue that contrasted starkly with the turmoil inside my head. I was in the kitchen, wrestling with the coffee maker, which, mercifully, had not awakened into sentience, when Celine appeared in the doorway. She was dressed in one of my old flannel shirts, rolled up at the sleeves, paired with sweatpants that were too large but serviceable. She gave me a tentative smile. I hope you don't mind. I found these garments and assumed they would be acceptable. My own attire was somewhat singed in the crash. I couldn't help the smile tugging at my lips. You look fine. Better than fine, actually. She approached the counter with curiosity. This coffee contraption is new to me. May I observe? Shrugging, I walked her through the process. For some reason, it felt surreal to explain how a filter works to a being from an advanced civilization. But she listened intently, her large, luminous eyes keen, as though this was some grand puzzle. Over mugs of steaming coffee, we settled in the living room, sunlight filtering through the dusty windows. A slight tension hung in the air, unspoken questions that threatened to overshadow any attempt at conversation. But before long, our uneasy silence was shattered by a frantic knocking at the door. I set my coffee down, shooting Celine a worried glance. Bet it's Miss Townsend again. But when I opened the door, I was surprised to find a frantic-looking teenager from down the block. He panted as though he'd run the entire distance. Hey, Mr. Johnson, Miss Townsend told me to come get you. Something weird's happening in the sky near your house. Without waiting for my reply, the boy jogged off again. Heart hammering, I stepped outside, with Celine trailing behind me. I didn't even need to ask what Miss Townsend had seen. The cause was apparent the moment I looked up. High above Redwood Lane, a series of metallic spheres floated in a strange formation. They glinted menacingly in the morning sun, perhaps half a dozen in total, rotating around each other like a miniature solar system. What are those? I whispered, though I suspected Celine had the answer. She narrowed her eyes, face taut with concern. They appear to be Borealian drones, but not from my house. Likely from House Malagon. House Malagon? Who are they? She swallowed hard. They are my betrothed's family. Former betrothed, she corrected. I left behind an arranged marriage to pursue my true destiny on Earth. Evidently, they are not pleased. My mouth dropped open. Wait, you were already engaged, before this prophecy drew you to me. She lowered her gaze, shame coloring her cheeks a faint hue. It was a politically motivated engagement. I refused to bind myself to someone I did not love, especially when the seers spoke of a greater cosmic bond. House Malagon must have followed me here, determined to either bring me back or ensure the prophecy fails. A jolt of alarm surged through me. This was more than a whimsical romance from the stars. This was a potential interstellar conflict right above Redwood Lane. Ms. Townsend's voice rang out from her front yard. "Rick, get over here. They're scanning people's houses, I just know it." Sure enough, one of the spheres emitted a thin beam of light, roving across rooftops, flickering upon windows. My battered house, with its still damaged roof, was the central focus. The beam lingered there for an unsettling moment. Then, one of the drones emitted a chilling mechanical warble. "We need to act," Celine said, her voice trembling with urgency. "Their scanning technology will detect my energy signature, and if they lock onto me, they might unleash a cosmic disruptor." My chest tightened. "We can't let them destroy my home, let alone endanger Ms. Townsend and everyone else on this street. Is there a way to stop them?" Celine exhaled. "Yes, but it won't be easy. Each drone is armed with advanced shielding. I can attempt to disrupt their link to House Malagon using a resonance frequency. If we sever their connection, they might deactivate." She hurried back inside, rummaging for materials. We discovered that her cosmic abilities could integrate with certain Earth technologies to create a rudimentary device. By coaxing leftover energy from her Star Runner's damaged data chip, retrieved from the attic, and fashioning a makeshift amplifier from an old radio in my garage, we assembled a strange contraption of wires, circuits, and Celine's shimmering star metal. All the while, Miss Townsend hovered on the street, barking questions at me through my open door. In a calmer moment, I might have told her to kindly wait, but urgency didn't allow for tact. I placed Celine's device on my front lawn, setting it on a rickety folding table. We cranked up the dial to what Celine believed would be the correct frequency, trusting she understood the ephemeral science behind it. The drones began to cluster overhead, swirling with an ominous hum. As I threw the switch, a resonant tone thrummed through the air. The ground vibrated beneath our feet. My entire body felt the sonic ripples. The drones reacted at once. They bobbed erratically, one shooting out a bolt of crackling energy that struck the sidewalk, scattering sparks. Miss Townsend shrieked and dove behind a hedge, though she continued to peek out with wide, terrified eyes. Celine stepped forward, her hands raised toward the sky. "Steady, my children of the cosmos," she murmured, voice carrying a quiet authority. "I release you from the command that binds you. Return to the silence from which you came." The frequency from our makeshift device intensified. One drone sputtered, a second crackled with arcs of energy dancing across its metallic surface. Finally, each sphere winked out in a quick succession of flickers. The swirling ceased. Metal shells clattered onto the street, inert. A silence settled over Redwood Lane as neighbors emerged from their houses, whispering in confusion or disbelief. Breathing heavily, I looked at Celine. She offered a subdued smile, though her eyes were heavy with worry. "They were only scouts," she said. "There could be more. My ex-fiancé, Prince Darkson, will not stop so easily." My mind buzzed with the fresh realization that my predicament was bigger than a small-town rumor. We had successfully repelled a drone attack, but the threat loomed larger, far beyond Redwood Lane. House Malagon was powerful, and they would not rest until they reclaimed Celine or destroyed her destiny with me. Ms. Townsend marched up, her face flushed. "Rick Johnson, what is going on? Alien contraptions, drones, orbs. This is absolutely beyond anything I've ever seen. Are we under attack? Should I call the police? Or the army?" I placed a calming hand on her shoulder. "I'm working on it, Miss Townsend. Believe it or not, this is Celine, a friend from out of town." Celine offered her a graceful bow. "Greetings, Miss Townsend. I regret any alarm. I come in peace." Miss Townsend's eyes nearly popped out of her head, but she seemed at a loss for words. Her gaze flicked to the inert metal spheres. I seized the moment to usher her back toward her house, promising we'd handle the debris and keep her safe. Reluctantly, she allowed me to guide her away. She shot Celine a curious, almost scandalized look, but eventually, she returned to her porch, muttering that she'd seen everything now. I turned to Celine. "We need a plan. They won't stop at drones." She nodded. "Indeed. House Malagon knows where I am. Their next step may be more direct. We must be prepared." Thus began a bizarre routine over the next week. Celine and I fortified the property, installing cosmic wards that she generated from her residual star metal. We hid them in everyday objects, a wind chime by my front porch, the mailbox post, the broken vent near my garage. Each ward glimmered faintly when Celine activated it, weaving an invisible barrier around the premises. We also tested the resonance device further, calibrating it so we'd be ready if more Malagon drones arrived. During these preparations, the half-sentient microwave came back online. This time, it introduced itself as Kevin, claiming that was the name that felt most natural. I had no clue how a microwave arrived at such an identity, but Celine theorized that a stray broadcast from an old sitcom might have influenced its emerging consciousness. Kevin the microwave offered to help us by analyzing signals or scanning for cosmic frequencies. It was surprisingly adept, though it did complain about the heat whenever it had to, ironically, warm up anything. In between all this alien tech tinkering, life still demanded its mundane tasks. I had to drive to the hardware store to gather supplies for the roof. Of course, Miss Townsend spotted me leaving and pounced, demanding updates. I fed her a half-truth about an experimental technology demonstration gone awry, hoping that might placate her. But her eyes remained suspicious, especially when she saw Celine peeking from the window, wearing yet another of my flannel shirts. At night, as Redwood Lane settled into silence, Celine and I would talk. She told me tales of Borealis, of star-laden deserts, crystalline cities built upon floating islands, and a monarchy guided by ancient prophecies. She spoke about her upbringing, the immense pressure from House Malagon to unite the two families, forging a powerful alliance. But her heart had always rebelled against the notion of a loveless marriage. Instead, she believed in the deeper resonance of soul connections, such as the one prophesied between us. In turn, I told her about my upbringing, the small, unremarkable life of Redwood Lane, how I'd inherited the old house from my father, how I'd lost my mother when I was a boy, and how I'd grown used to living on my own, harboring quiet dreams of something grander. Perhaps that was why, despite the shock and upheaval, I felt a curious sense of acceptance toward Celine. She represented the adventure my heart had always yearned for, though I had never dared admit it to myself. Days passed in this strange, fragile coexistence. I helped Celine adapt to earthly customs. She showed me glimpses of cosmic wonders. Kevin the microwave monitored the skies, diligently scanning for abnormal energy fluctuations. We lived under a cloud of looming threat. Each day was an exercise in hope. Hope that House Malagon might give up, or at least that we'd be ready for them. One late afternoon, as we were in the backyard rigging a cosmic sensor, cleverly disguised as a weather vane, Celine let out a gasp. Her eyes widened, pupils dilating with alarm. I spun around to see what had frightened her. A vortex, much like the one that had brought Celine, tore open in the sky above. The swirling clouds darkened, casting Redwood Lane in eerie twilight. Bolts of what looked like lightning snaked around the perimeter of this portal. Kevin's voice crackled through the open kitchen window. Warning. Significant cosmic incursion detected. Evacuate if possible. I dashed to Celine's side, heart hammering. Is it House Malagon? Yes, she whispered, voice trembling. I sensed Prince Darkson's presence. In a brilliant flash, something descended, wreathed in swirling violet flame. When the light receded, we beheld a tall figure, clad in ornate armor that shimmered like liquid mercury. His hair was silver, braided into a tight coil, and his complexion matched Celine's otherworldly pallor, albeit tinged with something colder, more menacing. At his side were two menacing guards, each clutching strange energy weapons. Celine, the armored figure intoned, his voice deep and resonant. You have run far enough. Return to Borealis at once, and we may yet salvage the alliance. You know the cost of defiance. Celine straightened, a renewed grace settling on her features. Darkson, I told you, I will not bind myself in a loveless union, especially when the prophecy dictates I must unite with Rick Johnson. Darkson's gaze, icy and condescending, flicked to me. This, human? Celine, you choose this ordinary creature over a prince of House Malagon? You insult our traditions. My jaw tightened, though I was sorely out of my depth. She's not property to be bartered, I said, struggling to project courage. Celine can decide for herself. Darkson raised a gloved hand, and the swirling energy around him intensified. You dare speak to me thus? I, who hold entire fleets in my command. I swallowed, bracing myself. I don't want to fight, I managed, voice shaking only slightly. But I won't let you force her to do anything. His laugh echoed with cruel amusement. How quaint. Then, to his guards, seize them. Destroy anything that stands in your way. I lunged forward, placing myself between Darkson's guards and Celine. One guard aimed his energy weapon, a blinding bolt firing straight at me. My heart nearly stopped, but Celine was faster. She flung up a glowing barrier, shimmering threads of cosmic power that deflected the bolt into the sky. Miss Townsend, likely alerted by the ruckus, peeked from her porch, only to shriek and dart back inside. Your wards? I cried, remembering the protective enchantments we'd placed. Will they hold? Celine winced as she summoned them. They should slow them, but direct confrontation was always a risk. Rick, you must get to the resonance device. We can try the same method we used on the drones, but Darkson's willpower is far stronger. While Celine grappled with the swirling energies, I dashed inside, nearly tripping on the threshold. Kevin beeped frantically. Incoming cosmic forces are off the charts, Rick. We need to overload the resonance to sever Darkson's link to his power source. I nodded, rummaging for the Star Runner's data chip. I found it tucked under the sink, where we'd stashed it after calibrating the wards. Outside, the sounds of crackling energy grew louder, accompanied by Celine's strained cries. Hurrying, I plugged the chip into the makeshift amplifier we'd rigged earlier. Kevin provided instructions via beeped commentary. Increase the amplitude. Now tune it to 4.3 terahertz. Good, hold it there. As I did, a deep hum rumbled through the air. I ran outside with the contraption, heart pounding in my ears. One of Darkson's guards blasted the resonance device, scorching its metal casing. Sparks flew from my wires. With a curse, I ducked behind the old oak tree. Celine unleashed a barrage of cosmic energy, forcing the guards to retreat momentarily. Rick, she cried, voice tremulous, activate it now. Flicking the final switch, I braced for the resonance. The hum soared to a shrill pitch. The pressure in the air was palpable, as though gravity itself wavered. I could barely keep my feet. Darkson snarled. You think this pitiful Earth technology can overcome the might of House Malagon? But his expression twisted when he felt the first wave of the resonance. It vibrated through the yard, rippling across the street like a shockwave. Neighboring windows rattled. The guards staggered, nearly dropping their weapons. Darkson raised his arms to generate a swirling shield of cosmic energy around himself, struggling to stand his ground. Celine, seizing the moment, channeled her own powers, directing them into the resonance. Our device's pitch changed to a harmonic chord, resonating on multiple frequencies that I could barely endure. My teeth ached from the intensity. At last, the synergy of our combined energies found its target. The swirling cosmic power around Darkson cracked like a shattered mirror. His eyes widened in disbelief. No, this cannot be. I am Malagon's favored son. Then, in a blinding flash, the link he had to his dimension severed. The vortex above Redwood Lane flickered, the swirling storm dissipating into daylight. As the energy drained from Darkson, his shimmering armor dulled. With a guttural groan, he sank to one knee, his guards likewise collapsing. Celine hurried to his side. I followed, breathing hard from the strain of the resonance. She knelt, her voice gentle yet resolute. Darkson, you must understand. Your hold on me was never real. I followed my destiny to be with Rick Johnson. Your house must accept that the prophecy cannot be broken by force. Darkson lifted his gaze, dark eyes glittering with lingering fury. You will pay for this. My father. Celine shook her head. The prophecy stands, whether your father approves or not. The cosmic path has been chosen. She stood, helping me gather the resonance device. The guards, still disoriented, groaned on the grass. Darkson glared at me, then at Celine, disbelief warring with bitterness on his face. With the link severed, he and his guards had no easy way to return to Borealis. I turned toward Celine. So what now? Do we call the Galactic Police or something? She let out a weary laugh. We don't have such a thing in Borealis, but perhaps we should. For now, let us see if we can show them mercy. Without their power source, they pose little threat. We can attempt to fix a communication link, so they might be summoned back peacefully, provided they cease hostilities. I regarded Darkson, who snarled low in his throat. I doubt he's the peaceful type, I muttered. Nonetheless, Celine approached him again, offering terms. Darkson, if you truly want to return home, you must accept that I will not go with you. My life, my choice, is here on Earth. Darkson glowered, but with his cosmic powers deactivated and his pride wounded, he could do little more than seethe. Fine, he spat. But do not think this is over, Celine. House Malagon is not so easily dismissed. A tremor of sadness flitted across her face, but she remained firm. I only ask that you respect my decision and the destiny that brought me here. We set them up in my musty garage, ironically enough, giving them a place to rest while we tried to reconfigure our Starrunner's data chip to open a temporary portal. The storm had abated, leaving Redwood Lane battered but intact. Miss Townsend ventured out once the coast was clear, demanding to know if the world was indeed ending. I assured her that the crisis was resolved. She stared dubiously at the collapsed aliens in my garage, but I half convinced her it was all part of an elaborate demonstration I was hosting. She huffed, grumbling that if aliens were truly real, the government would know, and marched back to her house to call her sister. Over the following days, Celine and I worked tirelessly to repair the Starrunner's chip. With Kevin the Microwave's help, we established a rudimentary communication with Borealis. Prince Darkson exchanged tense messages with his father, who ultimately demanded his son's return. House Malagon agreed that continuing to push the matter on Earth was too risky, especially now that their drones and Darkson's own incursion had failed. Pride might have forced them to try again, but they also had other political entanglements to handle. At last, we managed to generate a stable, albeit brief, wormhole in my backyard. Celine and I watched as Darkson and his guards prepared to depart. He glared at me one last time. Take your little cosmic fling while you can, Earthman, he sneered. One day, House Malagon shall ascend all realms, and perhaps we will see who truly rules the stars. I bit back a retort, deciding to let him have the final word. He and his guards vanished through the swirling portal in a shaft of pale light, leaving Redwood Lane once again quiet. The improvised gateway flickered and sealed, returning the backyard to its ordinary appearance. Only a scorched patch of grass remained as testament to the cosmic drama. I let out a long breath, turning to Celine. Is it really over? She offered a gentle nod. At least for now. Malagon is prideful, but he knows better than to engage in a protracted conflict on Earth. Too many variables, and too much cosmic risk. As relief flooded me, a surge of warmth bubbled in my chest. Without thinking, I pulled Celine into a tender embrace. She stiffened momentarily, then melted against me with a soft sigh. In that moment, as the cool breeze ruffled our hair, I felt something shift between us, a mutual understanding, a resonance deeper than any cosmic device could produce. Rick Johnson, she murmured, thank you for believing in me, even when it must have seemed impossible. I smiled, holding her close. I guess I was always waiting for something impossible to happen. In the days that followed, the tension that had weighed on Redwood Lane seemed to dissipate. The cosmic wards were slowly dismantled, leaving only faint traces of alien metal among the wind chimes. Kevin, still half sentient, continued to offer commentary on my cooking techniques, complaining that I lacked culinary ambition. Miss Townsend grew less accusatory, though she would never lose her inquisitive nature. Occasionally, she would eye Celine's alien grace and mutter something about international romances, but I took it all in stride. Yet a question remained. What of this prophesied marriage between Celine and me? We had not performed any ceremony by human or Borealian standards. We simply continued cohabitating, learning about one another's quirks and joys, building a quiet closeness. Celine adapted to Earth's modest wonders, tasting pizza for the first time, exclaiming at the vibrant colors of a morning sunrise, dancing to old records in my living room. Meanwhile, I reveled in the glimpses she shared of her cosmic heritage, the starlit illusions she conjured at night, weaving patterns of galaxies on the living room ceiling. One evening, as we sat on the porch swing, the sky alight with the glow of countless stars, she leaned her head on my shoulder. Would you take a walk with me, Rick? So we ambled to the backyard, where the grass had sprouted anew since the final confrontation with Darkson. Celine paused, gazing at me, her luminous eyes reflecting more than just starlight. In a fluid motion, She produced a small, gleaming band, crafted from star metal and etched with swirling runes. "This," she said softly, "is a Borealian symbol of union, typically exchanged in the presence of the seers. But if you wish, we could make our own vow here, under these earthly stars." My throat constricted with a rush of emotion. "You're saying you want to marry me? Truly, not just because some prophecy says so?" She managed a playful smile. "The prophecy guided me to Redwood Lane, yes, but it is my choice, and my heart, that keeps me here. I've learned that true fate must be embraced willingly, not merely followed out of fear or obligation." I reached into my pocket, heart pounding. The ring I offered was far more humble, my grandmother's wedding band, which had been in my family for generations. I gently placed it on her finger. "I don't have cosmic runes," I said, voice trembling, "but I do have my family's legacy. And I want you in my life, Celine, for as long as we both live." Tears glistened in her eyes. In the hush of that moment, only the crickets singing in the distance, we made our vows, quiet, unceremonious, yet brimming with sincerity. I promised to stand by her side, whether facing leaking roofs or cosmic battles. She promised to share her light, her laughter, and her enduring compassion. We sealed our union with a kiss beneath the moonlight. And though no Borealian seers or earthly officiants were present, it felt more genuine than any grand ceremony could have been. In that gentle backyard, the cosmos itself stood witness to the love born of stardust and everyday hope. When we returned inside, Kevin chirped his congratulations from atop the kitchen counter. Miss Townsend peeked through the window, no doubt conjuring all sorts of rumors. But for once, I was entirely at peace with her snooping. Because Redwood Lane, my old battered house, and the improbable future stretching ahead felt right. Celine was by my side. The cosmic storms had passed, and though life would always have challenges, interstellar or otherwise, I had discovered the most profound renovation of all, the remodeling of my own heart. As the weeks turned to months, Celine and I fell into a comfortable routine. She continued to refine her knowledge of Earth's ways, occasionally enchanting the local kids by making their paper airplanes fly a bit higher, or coaxing a stray cat down from a tree using gentle telekinesis. Kevin established a modest career on social media. Yes, my talking microwave found a niche producing comedic videos about microwave philosophy, which bizarrely garnered a small cult following. Miss Townsend, for her part, seemed to relinquish her earlier anxieties once we explained we had the demonstrations under control. Every so often, she dropped by with baked goods, her curiosity tempered by neighborly kindness. Our quiet life was not without reminders of the cosmos. Celine, from time to time, would sense ripples in the astral plane. We surmised House Malagon was stirring, forging alliances in other star systems. But for now, Redwood Lane remained safe. We stood ready, should they intrude on our happiness again. One crisp autumn evening, Celine and I sat on the refurbished porch, sipping warm tea laced with a mild Borealian spice that she'd concocted, an otherworldly sweetness that soothed the soul. The tarp was finally gone from the roof, replaced by brand-new shingles that sparkled in the setting sun. My house, once an eyesore, looked almost dignified thanks to fresh paint and Celine's subtle cosmic assistance. As the evening light spilled across the front yard, highlighting the patch of chrysanthemums that Miss Townsend had insisted I plant, I leaned close to my wife. "Yes, wife." She smiled at me, an expression full of contentment and boundless possibility. No words were necessary. We had shared cosmic battles, comedic half-sentient appliances, a suspicious neighbor, and a prophecy that refused to be denied. Our story, once marked by chaos and crashing ceilings, had transformed into something stable, something undeniably ours. In that moment, I recalled how Celine had first described the nature of cosmic destinies, that perhaps they existed not to dictate our path, but to illuminate possibilities that could lead us to our truest selves. And, in the twilight hush, I knew that Redwood Lane was exactly where I belonged, beside the luminous being who had taught me that renovation begins with the heart. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the stars emerged one by one, each a silent witness to our unlikely romance. Celine tucked a stray lock of hair behind her ear, gazing up at me. "Thank you, Rick," she whispered, "for everything. I set my mug aside and placed a gentle hand over hers. "No, Celine. Thank you for breaking through my roof and into my life." Her laughter chimed like distant bells across the cool evening air, drifting onward into the infinite tapestry of the night sky. And in that laughter, in her hand clasped within mine, I felt the profound, unbreakable truth. We were home, together, bound by love that transcended worlds, with a future as vast and hopeful as the stars themselves.